Welcome to the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe Council meeting. It's Monday, May the 15th at 7 p.m. We have everyone here this evening. We have our Public Works Manager, Colter Cahill, our Treasurer, Johnny Pereira, our CAO, Morgan Calvert, and our Clerk, Legislative Affairs, Michael Barnier. And we have three councillors here, Councillor McKinnon, Kingma, and Nordoff. Mike Brody is unable to join us for this evening. So we'll call the meeting to order. And is there any declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, you have had time to read the May 1st council meeting minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I have a mover to adopt those minutes? Motion made by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Kingma. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So this evening, we're lucky to have Scott and Jen from Graham Scott N's accounting firm to go over our 2022 audited financial statements. So I welcome you to the meeting. They're attending virtually, and we will turn the meeting over to you, Jen, and you have full control of the screen. So take it away.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here this evening. In case I haven't met any of you before, my name is Jen Buchanan. I am the engagement partner and have been for a few years for this year-end audit engagement. I have with me tonight Scott Westlaken. He is the audit manager. He has also been working on this file for the last few years. We are going to present the draft financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2022. I will share them on my screen and walk through. I will pause throughout my presentation if there are any questions. And again, at the end, if you do have any additional questions. After I present the draft financial statements, I will make a few summary comments about the audit overall. So I will share my screen. There we go, and I promise I'll make it a bit bigger. So these are the draft financial statements for the Corporation of the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe for the year ended December 31st, 2022. First page I'm going to pause at is management's responsibility for financial reporting. This is a letter at the front of the financial statements that will be signed by the CAO and the treasurer, and it just indicates that the information that's been provided as part of the year-end audit is accurate as far as they know and based on the controls of the municipality. So it's very standard disclosure, but it is something that we include in the front of the financial statements. So I wanted to draw your attention to it. The next page is the real deliverable. This is the independent auditor's report, which is our report to the members of council, inhabitants, and ratepayers of the Corporation of the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe. I am going to read out the opinion paragraph. This is what we're here for. So we have audited the financial statements of the Corporation of the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe, which comprised the statement of financial position as at December 31st, 2022, and the statement of operations and accumulated surplus, statement of change in net financial assets, and statement of cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the municipality's financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the municipality as at December 31st, 2022, and the results of its operations and its cash flow for the year then ended, in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for public sector entities. So in our business, we like to call that a clean audit opinion. There are no qualifications or reservations. The remainder of the auditor's report goes through the various responsibilities, including responsibilities of management, as well as those charged with governance, represented by council, as well as the auditor's responsibilities. Assuming these financial statements are approved as part of this meeting, the audit report will be dated today, May 15th, 2023. Turning to the statement of financial position, I'm just going to highlight a few things and of course pausing for any questions as we go. So first off, we have cash and investments. We'll look at those together. So during 2022, there was a new investment policy adopted by the municipality. And as you can see, that resulted in a transfer of cash to investments in accordance with that new policy. The details of those investments are disclosed in Note 2, primarily sitting in GICs. Taxes receivable has decreased significantly over the prior year, and that's due to good collection efforts by management and employees of the municipality to really get that taxes receivable number down. And you can see the breakdown of it more in note 3. Accounts receivable is pretty comparable year over year. One change for those who may have looked at the 2021 statements is that we are now including benefiting landowners as part of accounts receivable, and we've made a comparative change for 2021 as well. So in layman's terms, that the majority of that is relating to drains collectible. So that is sitting within accounts receivable, and you can see the details of that in note 4. So total financial assets, $12,129,000. Under financial liabilities, we have accounts payable and accrued liabilities. We're seeing a bit of a decrease year over year. The decrease relating really to trade payables, and that's just due to the timing of payments and the activity that's happening around year end. Deferred revenue, which includes the obligatory reserve funds, has decreased as well, and that just relates to monies that were received before year end but will be spent at a future time. And you can see the breakdown of what's included there in note 5. Net long-term liabilities, we see a slight increase there, and the total has increased because the amount relating to tile loans outstanding has decreased. Landfill closure and post-closure liability. We're going to look at this in a little more detail when we get to note 8, but there are 2 landfills that are part of the municipality, and this is the future liability and the recognition now, knowing that when we close the second landfill, there are going to be some expenses incurred. And again, we'll look at the details of those when we get to note 8. So total financial liabilities, $1,867,000. Net financial assets, assets less liabilities, $10,261,000. And we have our non-financial assets, tangible capital assets. We see on an overall basis, there's been a decrease. It's because amortization was higher than additions this year, and then inventories and prepaids. So we have our net total non-financial assets, $19,255,000. So our accumulated surplus, $29,517,000. I'll pause there ever so slightly in case there are any questions before I move on. Okay. Moving on to the statement of operations and accumulated surplus. The first thing I always like to point out is this budget has been modified from the original council approved budget. So in note 17, we take the council approved budget and we turn it into a PSAB budget. So it's similar for accounting purposes as what we're presenting here. Some of the changes that includes would be things like capital purchases, amortization, and reserve transfers. So the council approved budget is modified for those things. So we do present the budget here, and then we present actual for 2022 and actual for 2021. Again, I'm just going to point out some of the variances year over year. I'll start with user charges. We can see that we have an increase compared to prior year and compared to budget. There's been an increase in fees, building permits, as well as a previous amount of deferred revenue relating to road restoration, about $140,000 was brought into income during the year. Local improvement levies is identical to budget and a little lower than prior year. There was more drain work billed in the prior year. Government transfers do relate to the type of funding that's available and whether there's any special grants available or received. So that amount does vary year over year. Investment income, we're seeing here the benefit of the new investment policy and an increase in investment income. Penalties and interest on tax, we're also seeing an increase here, and that would relate to the increased efforts on tax collection. Gain on disposal of capital asset. So there was an old fire van that was sold during the year, and those were the proceeds from that sale. So total revenues, $6,319,000. Going down to expenses, again, I'll touch on a couple of things. For one, we'll note that in 2021, there were a few significant staff changes, staff vacancies at different times of the year. So within general government, we're seeing a little bit more what a full complement of staff would look like. So there's a slight increase there, as well as some other slight shifts within that category. Many of the other items very comparable to budget. In terms of waterworks and sewer, there are some legal expenses within that amount that were not originally budgeted for. We're seeing that we came in under budget for garbage collection and disposal. There was a decrease in the amount of spent on contracted services. And in terms of agriculture, last year there was obviously a very large number relating to some drainage work, which was not reoccurring in this year. So total expenses, $5,210,000, which results in an annual surplus of $1,110,000. I will pause again for any questions before I continue. Okay, seeing none. So now we get into some of the more accounting schedules. So the statement of changes in net financial assets, as well as the statement of cash flows. I'm going to pause here on the notes to the financial statements and remind anyone who's less familiar with these financial statements that the Note 1 Summary of Significant Accounting Policies can be a great place to learn about what accounting policies are used by the municipality. There were no changes to accounting standards this year or to the local accounting policies. I will pause here at the very end of Note 1. There's a recent accounting pronouncements. So there is an upcoming change to accounting standards relating to financial instruments. We actually hosted some training, which Johnny attended on this last fall. This is for fiscal years beginning on or after April 1st, 2022. So for your just 2023 year end. And so there will be some disclosure changes and such, and we'll work with management on what needs to be done to implement these changes. So I thought I would let you be aware of that. Note 2 is the investment note. That is where we mentioned the new investment policy and the increased investment in GICs. Taxes receivable. So this is where you can see again a significant decrease in the amounts outstanding at year end due to those positive collection efforts. Accounts receivable. I mentioned that we are now including benefiting landowners within this balance, and that's where you can see that. And then Note 5, deferred revenue, including obligatory reserve funds. Again, so these are amounts that have already been received, but will be spent in a future period. Note 8, landfill closure and post-closure liability. There's just a few things I want to highlight here. So as I mentioned, there are 2 landfills that are owned by the municipality, Adelaide and Metcalfe. So the Metcalfe location has already been closed. It was closed already previously, and there is a requirement to keep $25,000 set aside to use for future closure costs. So that is being done. That's fine. The other side, Adelaide, you can see here from the details that it's expected to reach capacity in 2028. That's based on an updated report that was done by a third party. And the estimated closure costs, again, happening in 2028, but they've been discounted to today's dollars of $68,834, and the estimated post-closure costs of $683,242. So that means we have increased the amount that we're showing as a liability. So last year we had $195,000. This year we're at $292,000. Which is the discounted future cash flows for the closure and post-closure. Again, we bring a little bit into the liability each year as we go towards that 2028 closure date. It's meant as an offset so that by the time we're incurring those costs, we've already theoretically set aside the funds for accounting purposes. Is there any questions on the landfill? I know that one's a little bit different, but just wanted to draw everyone's attention to it.
Yeah, I just actually want to touch on that Adelaide landfill site. We have been working with them to look into the expansion of the landfill site. So that 2028 date, we have to say that, but we are looking at other options moving forward, whether it's an expansion or something else. So.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, unfortunately for financial statements, we have to say what is right now. But yes, I do acknowledge we were aware that there were potential plans for the future. Okay, I'll continue on in the statements. So we have tangible capital assets. This is again where you can see the additions by the different categories. Nothing too significant. The most significant capital project in 2022 did relate to the Kerwood Park. Accumulated surplus. So again, you can just see your total surplus is that 30 million. And how is it broken down? The largest chunk of it is invested in tangible capital assets. And then there are amounts in reserves that are set aside for a specific purpose, as well as reserve funds set aside for a specific purpose. So you can see some details there of what's in the accumulated surplus and how it has been allocated. Turning to note 17, budget figures. So again, this is where I was mentioning that we have the original council approved budget, and then we make adjustments for PSAB purposes for things such as capital to come up with the PSAB budget. The final page that I'll present is the schedule of segment disclosure. These are the same revenues and expenses that we did see on the statement of operations. They're just now presented in more detail by segment. So you can see the breakdown of the revenues and expenses on this page. I wasn't going to go into more detail, but at this time I am happy to take any questions on the financial statements.
Are there any questions for Jen from anyone? Councillor Kingma?
Thanks, Jen. That was a great presentation. Through the mayor to you, I was just thinking that a municipality that's being responsible is supposed to want to replace its existing assets and invest in new assets and infrastructure at a rate exceeding the estimated wear or obsolescence of its existing assets. And we see in 2022 that what was the word again?
Amortization.
Amortization. Yeah, it's municipal speak. The amortization far exceeded the increase in tangible assets. And I wonder if there's some kind of, do people usually look at a 5-year rolling average before they pass judgment on numbers like that?
As I understand it, there was a specific management plan to not go into as many capital additions in 2022 based on the type of work that was being undertaken, but that there will be continued projects in future years. So I am not identifying any concerns, but I would welcome anyone on management to comment further.
Yeah, I can just touch on that quickly there. So in 2022, we did focus on Kerwood Park as the project. And then we were looking at our asset management plan last year as well. So we wanted to understand kind of our position first before we started kind of working on various capital projects. So looking kind of at the science to how we're approaching things, just so we can just be really cost conscious and looking at those critical items first. And then using our asset management plan to project what in the next 5 or 10 years will look like and spend accordingly.
Thank you, Johnny. Any other questions for Jen? I have one. It's not a significant question by any means. It's on page 14 on the bank indebtedness. We're non-borrowing. We've traditionally not been a borrower. And I noticed you've got the bank's prime rate at 2.45%. So is that, do you take an average for the whole year? And that's how you arrive at that number?
I believe so. I think because it wasn't being utilized, yeah, I think that's probably an average rate. Obviously, if you did use it, it would be at that point in time. So it would be at a December 31st rate if you did have anything borrowed. But
yeah, well, it's just because our investments were right around the end of the year. We were fortunate enough to secure 5.7 and change. So yeah, clearly the rate would have been much higher, like it's 6.7 now or whatever it is. So, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I will stop sharing my screen. That'll make it easier for me to see all of you. And I'll make a few other comments on the audit. In addition to the audited financial statements, we did provide to council a copy of the audit findings letter. We call that a no issues letter. It is a letter between us as the auditors and those charged with governance represented by council. And it goes through items such as, do we have any suggestions for alternative accounting policies? Did we have any disagreements with management? That type of thing. And the good news is that there was no issues. There is nothing to report, but I still like saying that so that everyone is aware, and members of council do have that available to read. The other document we provided to council is called the Those Charged with Governance Questionnaire. It's a series of, I think, 3 or 4 questions. And again, it's just outlining that open, transparent communication between council and us as auditors. So it allows you to comment on a few specific things relating to the municipality and to share your answers directly with us. So we don't need to talk about that specifically now, but I wanted to draw your attention to those 2 documents. The third document that we do issue at the end of our audit is a management letter. And this is an opportunity for us to provide any controlled efficiencies that we find, or suggestions for improvement, or just recommendations that we may have identified. In the past couple of years, we have had a number of issues presented on this letter. And this year, in consultation with management, we have issued a no issues letter, which means we do not have any new recommendations. We are well aware that management is continuing to work on some of our previous recommendations, such as the work relating to drains. So we didn't feel the need to report on that again this year. And we do support that management is going in a good direction with things such as the new investment management policy, the work on capital assets, and the work on drains. The only high level things that I would mention is sort of things to be aware of with a small rural municipality is segregation of duties. You do have a very small finance team, so that is always going to be a concern. So the more people you can have involved checking things over, and I know council is directly involved as well, the better it is. So I thought I would mention that as well. But again, we have no concerns, and we issued a clean management letter. So those were the main things I wanted to touch on as the auditor, but I am happy to entertain any questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, Jen, something just in case anyone in the public. So there is no issue. When Johnny arrived, he put additional controls in place for second signing officers and things like that. So we have no concerns at this time about that. So I just want to be clear on that. Any other questions or comments for Jen or Scott? Okay, seeing none, we have a recommendation that council approve the 2022 audited financial statements as presented. Could I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Kingma, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So Jen and Scott, you're free to go. Thanks so much for joining us this evening and going through the statements. And I know you've been in close contact and worked great with the staff, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Great. Thank you.
Good one.
Okay, next up, we have the correspondence, upcoming conferences, seminars, and meetings. We did have a visioning statement in reference to the official plan scheduled for May 24th at 10 a.m. That's now been canceled and bumped forward to Wednesday, June the 14th at 10 a.m. And then our next planning meeting of council is June the 19th at 7 p.m. We have recommended readings, CC1, Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, MPAC, 2022 financial statements, CC number 2 from Enbridge Gas, the locate charge response letter, and CC number 3, the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors 2023 trade show. So that's just a reminder, I believe it's the 6th and 7th, Coulter. Yeah, the first week. And the Public Works Department is lending some support to that. And I think that's great. Under action required, CC number 4, that we have a resolution before us, the City of Stratford, the use of long-term care funding to support community care services. Is anybody wanting to support that? Councillor Kingma?
I would like to support that. I think it would take pressure off acute care hospitals and long-term care homes if there was more home-based funding.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Nordoff. And those in favor? And that's carried. CC number 5, a resolution from the Township of Armour regarding water aerodromes. CC number 6, we have a resolution before us from the County of Prince Edward declaring intimate partner violence an epidemic. Councillor Kingma, or sorry, Councillor McKinnon.
I would like to support that. We just have to look in the OPP reports that we receive weekly, and we can see the domestic violence that's in our area. So I would like to support that.
Okay. So we have that on the floor. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Nordoff? And those in favor? And that's carried. CC number 7, a resolution from the County of Prince Edward, proposed provincial policy statement. Councillor Kingma?
I'm okay with supporting this one. Anything that pauses some of the changes to the PPS headed our way is welcomed.
Okay, I'll take that as a motion. Do we have a seconder for that? Okay, seeing none, that's it. So we, could I have a motion that council receive and file correspondence CC 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7? Moved by Councillor Kingma, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So next up on the agenda is the operating budget to actuals up to and including April 2023, and we'll turn that over to our treasurer, Johnny Pereira.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the council, we're back at it again with the monthly operating budget to actual reports. So far, spending to date and revenue collection seems to be on pace with the budget. It is fairly early in the year. Many projects are still to come. But as of right now, everything seems, like I said, to be on pace with budget. So the recommendation is to receive the report as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Johnny. Are there any questions regarding the operating budget? I think it's nice to see, physically, there, I guess, visually to see where we're at each month. So I appreciate that budget. Seeing none, then we have a recommendation that the operating budget to actual report for April 2023 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Nordoff. Seconded by Councillor Kingma. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next staff report is in reference to the grass cutting contract, and I'll turn this over to our Public Works Manager, Coulter Cahill.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clark. As mentioned, this report is on our grass cutting contract. The township historically retains a contractor to cut our grass at various locations throughout the township. In 2022, staff procured a contractor for a 3-year term starting in 2021 and ending in 2023. Mahler's Groundskeeping was the successful contractor. The township has been considering a strategy where grass cutting is brought in-house, as we have had some challenges maintaining service levels and responding to complaints throughout the grass cutting seasons. This contract consisted of cutting and trimming the grass once per week on 13 different properties, including multiple cemeteries, the public works facilities, municipal office, Kerwood wastewater treatment plant, Kerwood Fire Hall, Kerwood Park, and Crathie Hall. In 2022, council made the decision to purchase a 0-turn lawnmower to maintain the Kerwood Park, including using the mower to drag the baseball diamonds. This was the first step toward bringing the grass cutting service in-house. In April of this year, Mahler's Groundskeeping contacted township staff, terminating the existing contract with 1 season left, remaining in the original agreement. Due to the termination of the grass cutting contract by the contractor, municipal staff have been maintaining the various properties listed in the background of this report, which is going very well. We have been tracking our time, our fuel usage, our labor costs to better understand the costs required to potentially bring the service in-house. Through this analysis, staff have determined that bringing the grass cutting in-house does make better economic sense and ensures a high level of service is maintained, including our response times to customer complaints. Originally, the township was proposing to make this transition in 2024 based on the 3-year term of the grass cutting contract. However, we have had to pivot based on the early termination of this contract just prior to the grass cutting season. A financial analysis was completed using an 8-year time frame, using estimated operating and capital costs. Throughout this analysis, it has been projected that the township would save an estimated $95,000 over the following 8 years if the service was brought in-house. To maintain the service and ensure continuity of grass cutting throughout the year, the township will need to purchase a landscaping trailer and a second but smaller lawnmower. The total capital costs for the new equipment are estimated to be about $25,700. However, staff are only recommending purchasing the landscaping trailer in 2023 to ensure 2023 budget alignment. Estimated cost of contracting out over the next 8 years using $70 per hour was $341,653. And the estimated operational and capital costs to move the service in-house over the next 8 years while leveraging existing capacity is $245,979. I will bring Johnny in at this time to speak to the savings, as we have moved a few things around to utilize existing capacity to provide this service. I don't know if Johnny doesn't want to speak to this.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so we did do some analysis on this based on, like Coulter mentioned, tracking staff's time and completing the works. So we use an 8-year time frame, which is an estimated useful life of a mower. So we wanted to see what can we maximize that mower's life. How can we maximize that life with what we're proposing here? So with Coulter's team, he reorganized his team and found some efficiencies, and we were able to bring grass cutting in-house, or proposing bringing in-house, which could save the tax base over $300,000 over the 8-year period. So this is finding excess capacity within the team. The $95,000 that the report outlines there is the conservative approach, meaning if we had to go out and hire a part-time person over the summer months, we would still be ahead by $95,000 going out and hiring that extra body. But because of Coulter's work of reorganizing and finding some efficiencies in his department, we can utilize existing staff to do the work. If that is the case over the 8 years, we could see a potential savings of $300,000 as that contract alone over the 8 years, assuming an inflationary increase annually, would be about $341,000. Our true cost after buying the additional lawnmower, buying a landscape trailer, factoring in what fuel, repairs and maintenance, insurance, that would only cost us around like $45,000 over the 8 years. So significant savings compared to that contract of $341,000. So those are just the numbers. So if we find capacity, which Coulter has this year, but if we continue to find capacity over the 8 years, we can save the township over $300,000 by bringing this in-house.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny, for that. My recommendation, I have 2 recommendations below, but I will open it up for comments or questions.
Are there any comments or questions for Coulter? Councillor McKinnon?
Through you, Mayor Clark, to Coulter. Coulter, are you going to be hiring students to do the grass cutting mainly?
Thank you, Councillor McKinnon. At this time, we do aim to keep it in-house with our staff complement right now at this point. So maybe that's something we can look to in the future. But at this point, we are trying to keep this all in-house and save as much money as we possibly can.
And just to follow up, with construction season coming on, that the additional hours can be accommodated easily enough with the existing staff.
Yeah, that's a great question. That is something that we did talk about quite a bit. Over the years, we have gotten into a lot of our own construction, as you know, over the last 10 to 15 years. But we are moving to more of a maintenance first team now. So by utilizing, like say next year, the Middlesex County helping us rebuild Mullaferry Drive and whatnot, it has helped us to go more of a maintenance first team. So it has, allowed us to sort of reorganize a little bit, and I think this would definitely help.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor King.
Thank you. Just a comment. This is a good move. I think the cost savings from outsourcing are proving to be, evaporating. I don't think we can count on outsourcing as a means of saving money. So I think this is a step in the right direction. It puts community control over public service delivery. So that's a great feeling, and onward and upward.
Yeah, and if I just might add, I mean, we all know when you're trying to get people to work, there is a labor challenge out there. So if we can maximize the hours that our employees, like the benefit of what we're getting out of our employees, not that we're slave drivers, but at the end of the day, there's always room for improvement. And I think Johnny's alluded to that when he said you've looked around and figured there are some efficiencies within your own department to be more cost effective overall. So we appreciate that. Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, we have a recommendation that council direct staff to move forward with bringing the grass cutting contract in-house and the purchase of a new landscape trailer, and that council direct staff to monitor the program changes and report back at the end of the year as part of the 2024 budget process. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, at this time, we're going to go into closed session. So we will stop live streaming briefly. Could I have a motion to go into closed? Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor McKinnon, that council adjourn to closed session at 7:38 pursuant to section 2392 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss the following matters: litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board regarding the servicing agreement between Adelaide Metcalfe and Strathroy Caradoc, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, potential disposition of municipal property.